Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show. And here on the Total Truth Show, we want to help you break free from the lies and propaganda of the mainstream media, all the disinformation and misinformation. We want to help you blast through all of that. And my name is Ken Kleinberg, coming to you all the way from the USA, San Diego, California.
And I'm Aldwyn Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
There is a great awakening happening in the world right now, and you're going to want to come along for the ride.
A lot of lies are coming to the surface. There's a lot of awakening happening, and as this awakening is happening, people realize they've been deceived for years. They've been lied to for years around all sorts of things. A lot of people have been blind to what has been going on in the world, and now they're starting to see. They're starting to see things in a different light.
Through our show, we want to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass. And we don't want you just to accept the things that we're saying. That goes for our guests as well. We want you to do the research for yourself. Get out there and start questioning things. Start looking things up. Do the research. We want to pave the way for a new awakened world. And we want you to come along for the ride. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Welcome to Total Truth Show episode 83. Oh my gosh, 83 already. It's amazing. And today's topic is a hot one, and I'm sure you're going to get heaps out of it, is the truth about responsibility. We have my amazing co-host from San Diego. How are you going there, Ken?
Absolutely wonderful.
Beautiful. And we have a very special guest, and a little bit about this guest before we hear from her. She is the founder of Be Your Own Ultimate Resolve Solution, a not-for-profit trust building, the world's first high-level personal development emergency hotline. Centered on self-responsibility, learning to embrace the word, the concept, and the consequences, this lady has experienced and grown from detesting the idea of responsibility to fully embracing the power of it. Her inspiration has been driven by many opportunities for her growth, as she perceived were guiding angels, and developed a calling to bring the power of empowering assistance to many people. She's on a mission to transform mental health to total wellness, and partnered with Alexander Oxford, who we interviewed recently on Media Queen TV. Through spinopractic massage and the mind paradigm, they are building a human economy by the people, for the people, by connecting coaches and mentors worldwide. Be Yours creates the platform for mentors and coaches to expand their skills and their audience and share all of our greatest gifts for more beneficial impact. Welcome to the show, Hollie.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm really grateful to be here.
I love the by the people, for the people. That is language that I totally resonate with. I love that.
And since I'm from Michigan originally, we relate so much, Ken. I've actually lived in Fresno, California, and stopped in Anaheim to live for a short bit on our way to Tucson, because my parents separated when I was just a baby, and I lived with my dad for a year, and that was kind of where I went when I was living with him. So I love it because, I obviously grew up in a country that was all about government by the people, for the people. And as we've probably seen, like you said, lies and media have come out of the fact that whoever those people were in government have started to shift and change it into something else than what it was originally created to be.
Yes, absolutely. It's interesting
100%.
times we're living in right now. And I must say I am very grateful to be alive at this time, because it is creating some very strong beings through this time. There has been absolute warfare going on a mental, emotional, physical, spiritual level over the last few years particularly. And we have a whole uprising now of some, 5D type beings, I would say, that are coming through now, that we're exiting the 3D world and into the 5D. And the more that we can lift our consciousness and raise our energy, the more we're going to be empowered through these challenging times that we're going through, with world events that we're seeing like never before, where we have the threat of nuclear weapons and all sorts of things that can be happening at any moment. Potential World War III potentially on the horizon, and very interesting world events. And in the meantime, people are dealing with their own inner conflict. I want to welcome to everyone on the live stream here. We've got Cher Musician Love has joined us on Instagram. Lucinda J. Harris, good to see you. Jeff Veal from downtown Manila. Have an awesome day. And Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff has donated a $1,000 7-day prize, 7 nights in a place overlooking Manila Bay for our Stop Toxic Fire Ant community event that we've got this Sunday. Thank you so much, Jeff, for donating that prize, and all the funds are going to go to Save the Bees Australia, because the government's rolled out this crazy $1.2 billion toxic fire ant program that's killing everything, dogs, cows, horses, etc. Come along Sunday and get informed. Kelly France, good to see you there on Facebook as well. Wherever you're joining us from, let us know where you're from. And there we go, Kelly says Arizona. Welcome all the way from Arizona, Kelly. Fantastic. Now, responsibility. What a hot topic this is. Now, what I know about responsibility is the more responsibility we have, the more empowered we are. So, Hollie, I'm curious about why you resisted responsibility for so long, and how did you come to change that?
Well, I think that the parental upbringing had an influence in that, right? So as a young child, you're really taught about responsibility, not by using the word so much, but just by the things that you're taught and how to behave and, what to take care of, etc. But that word actually got put into my vocabulary at a young age. So I learned the word as a connection to what I had to do, what I was being told to do. I think the idea of being responsible, maybe I just attached to it, maybe spiritually I was attached to the word, and it doesn't affect people the same way. But it kind of became a bad word because it was the idea of what consequence you'd get if you're not being responsible. And so I sort of attached myself to the consequence aspect of it in the negative framework, and sort of went along a lot of my years understanding responsibility and discipline in a negative context rather than in an empowering context.
Yes, it's interesting. It's like my dad used to say to me, Aldwyn, you've got to be disciplined and organized. And I was like, I'll do what I want when I want. And, he was saying it from a place of love. But for me, it landed like, oh, I don't want to be that. That sounds really boring. That sounds like, I just want to be free and crazy and out there. And, and I resisted for years. And it cost me massively for many years not being disciplined and organized. And I must say, even nowadays, I struggle with it. I find it very challenging to be disciplined and organized. I think I'm getting better as I practice it. I think maybe it's the same with responsibility. Responsibility sounds like kind of a boring word. It sounds like, oh God, who wants to be responsible? Let's be fancy free and let's, dance around naked or whatever, but, it's the misfits, the rebels, we don't like to do things like others do things generally, right? We don't like to conform and far from anything, I hate the thought of being boring, or being like the Walking Dead, like half the people are out there. That doesn't sound very exciting to me at all. So, yes, it's an interesting balance. So responsibility is something that gives people power, and same with organization and discipline. It actually gives you power because structure creates freedom. Structure creates freedom. And when you take responsibility, you're no longer being the victim. You're no longer living below the line. You're now stepping above the line and looking at how you can be responsible for everything in your life, which is one of the most challenging things. And I know you've done Landmark, Hollie, and we're both Landmark graduates. And oh, you haven't done Landmark? Okay, you haven't done it. Okay,
no.
well, in life, it's a lot. Okay, maybe it was Alexander's done it, has he?
No, we're just familiar with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, we've done
Okay.
NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is similar but different.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, so you know
Yeah.
about landmark. So anyone who's done landmark education, who's a graduate, they actually talk about in landmark, they talk about being at the cause of everything in your life. Like you are at the cause of it. You are responsible for 100% for everything that's happened in your life, which can be really hard for a lot of people to get their head around that, right? How could you be responsible if someone's being nasty to you, or if you've gone through some kind of trauma? How is it your responsibility? So could you talk a bit about that? What are your thoughts on that, being responsible for everything in your life?
Well, I learned that at 14. I suppose I learned it through other things when I was younger, but when it comes to taking responsibility and using that as an empowerment tool, it was an inadvertent learning. I found myself in a situation that I try to touch around it without getting deep into it, but honestly, I just want to be open about it. At 14, I was a rather mature looking young lady. I don't look a lot different than I did back then. And so it was easy for me to be attracted to and attracted by adults and older people. And so the first guy that I decided to give myself to was older, about 17. And that was an okay experience. Unfortunately, his friend took it wrong and thought, oh, I'm just giving it to everybody. I didn't know that. Thought I was making a connection of friendship, and I thought I was connecting with the whole group. And we were supposed to hang out and go see a movie, and instead he took me to his house, which was in a really well-established neighborhood of wealth, and that's not where you would find emergency phones. You wouldn't easily be able to knock on people's door. It was not in an area I was very familiar with, and being trapped in a date rape situation. And I say it because I think a lot of people, especially today, and the Me Too movement that recently happened, in the past few years, would really feel grossed out by that. The thought of being trapped in that situation, of feeling like you don't have any place to go, and this person took advantage of you. But for me, I sort of assessed that. I assessed what got me there. The choice I made with the person to hang out with that I didn't know very well, what I didn't do that I could have done. All of those things went through my head, after I already assessed I couldn't use the phone, I couldn't run away. I wasn't sure what this person was going to do to me in the end, so I just went with it. When the whole thing ended and I went home, that's when those things dropped in. And I said, I will not get in that situation again. I will recognize people. Like for me, it was a decision that I made that said, no, I don't accept just going with the flow all the time without understanding what I'm actually saying yes to. And so that was really the turnaround point that I think helped me with a lot of the decisions that I made. And funny enough, I did go with the flow a lot in my life. So like you, I made a lot of choices in my life that led me down different paths that weren't always beneficial and weren't always healthy choices. But what underlined, I guess, the success of me living through them and learning through them and getting to this place where I am now is that I constantly looked at what I could learn from it. And I used that idea of responsibility in the circumstances to stay safe. That's really the learning there, that if we can first of all recognize when we're in the situation, how we can take responsibility by the next steps we take, or the steps we'll be able to take when we can the next time, it empowers us to make different choices. It empowers us to make beneficial choices to help us through that circumstance. And I got into some dangerous positions later in life. So I have a lot of interesting stories I could share, with people when it's appropriate. But the key learning is that when you really start to center in on yourself and how you made your choice, why you made your choice, and what choice you would have preferred if you'd had enough consciousness to make it, is super empowering. It really allows you to take control of things in your life in a beneficial way and lead you to all the right people that can help you with what you want.
Yes, love that. And even the word responsibility, it's responsibility, right? Being able to respond rather than react. And how many people get into reaction mode? And, it's very, very common. And when people get into reaction mode, they either fight, they freeze, or they run, right? They one of three. Sometimes they freeze and run, or they fight and freeze. And, sometimes there's a combination of a few of those things that happen. But generally, people go back to when they were like 3 to 5 years of age, they start behaving like a kid again when they react to situations. And the fact is, life is going to throw curveballs at any time, any moment. There will be curveballs thrown. And it's all about, how are you going to respond? How are you going to take some responsibility around what is happening? Ken, I'm curious about your thoughts around this.
Honestly, well, especially with the reaction thing, that kind of that definitely hits, targets for me, because I'm just like, how many times have I been reactive when I should have been proactive and different things like that. But, I think especially over the last year to 2 years, there's a lot of deep inward growth that's happened. And partly it's been because mentors I've been connected with. It's been there's just been a combination of a bunch of things, as well as my own faith. About a year ago, I started really hardcore seeking on, what does it, on basically asking God, how do I make you a part of my brand? How do I bring you how do I bring my faith and my beliefs in you into my brand? And as I was just really, really intentional about that, and that's a key word right there, intentionality. That's a very big, powerful key word. And so I continued to be very intentional about it. Lo and behold, God brings me a faith-based coach who is absolutely amazing and had me, and has helped me really further dial in my brand. My messaging is so far dialed in now that I've got clients coming through my mini educational boot camp. I've got the activity that I want. Now I'm just kind of looking to keep it going and scale it out. But, and even through that, my own devotional life, my own relationship with my Lord Jesus Christ has deepened through that. And again, that's all through intentionality that I had set forward, and I had been very, what's the word I want to use? Consistent about, very, very consistent about it, because it's something I really wanted. And it's like the floodgates just opened, and I still sit back in my chair and look over the last year and just go, wow, what a freaking amazing ride. I mean, I've had my brand and company since summer of 2020, but I feel like this last 9 months to year has just been an acceleration, and one like I have not seen. And so I really feel like when it comes to taking responsibility and taking control, realizing that in every circumstance, you have a choice. You have a choice in every circumstance. You can choose two different things. One, you can choose to be a victim, or two, you can choose to pivot in another direction. Now, by pivoting, I'm not saying the circumstance has gone away. I'm just saying you've chose to take a different mindset with it. You've chose to look at it this way, and you've chose to pivot over here and to remain in control rather than be a victim and be like that child, like you were saying, of 3 to 5, 3 to 5 year old throwing a temper tantrum. That's being a victim of the circumstance. Guilty, definitely. But I think my process with growth has just been, especially in the last year, has just been amazing. And, it's just like, at times I sit here and I'm almost without words at what I'm seeing happen in front of my eyes. And so that's what I'll speak into that. You all have a choice in every circumstance. I don't care how crazy, how difficult, how undeserving the circumstances. In that circumstance, you've got a choice. Remember that. Don't become a victim. Choose to pivot in a different direction and empower yourself to then grow through that and learn through that. That's the key. Anyhow, back to you, Hollie.
No, I love that, Ken. Thank you. I went on an interesting spiritual journey where in my youth at 11, I dismissed it all. I saw hypocrisy in the church and I said, no, thanks. So when you mention how I've had angels around me, it shows where I've grown and how I've brought God into my life. So for me, I respect everybody's version of God and everyone's faith and belief and how they bring that spiritual source into body. I myself resonate with the concept of spiritual source rather than a predetermined notion of God and Christ, etc. I found in studying a lot of faiths and religions, the concepts and tenets of everyone's faith is basically the same. We will, content-wise, shift the words we use to express it, but the tenets of everyone's belief about, how to be good and live in God's image really does resonate amongst all religions I've studied. And these are, multiple Hindu religions and Islam and Asian, spiritual beliefs, as well, philosophies, as well as Christian beliefs. And so with that, I've looked at my life and seen the individuals who have made influence in helping me through a challenge, maybe at times rescuing me, dropping in when there's a great need, even if to me it doesn't feel great, they recognize the importance of that. And that's where I've looked back and said, these have got to be angels in my life. I've been homeless in a foreign country, in addition to being homeless in Michigan, and people have come to my aid. And I've not taken that for granted. I have recognized with so much gratitude how beautiful it has been to connect with these souls who obviously saw and had faith in me to help and support me on my journey. And that was something that took me years to understand. My self-worth was the foundation of it all. People could see it in me, but I couldn't see it in myself. And so when you don't have that vision of your own self-worth, it will lead you to reacting. And some of the reactions that you have to the circumstances in your life then will create a belief system and then behaviors, which then further reinforce that belief system. Thus, we'll have problems with addiction or problems with relationships or problems with, our self-image and how we, think that people should see us or how we think we should see ourselves, etc. And I appreciate very much that I've journeyed through a lot of these things in a way that's given me a perspective that I hope other people will also see as being more objective. Because when I found myself in the circumstance and I'm living in some, victimhood place, I didn't want to stay there. And so I would find my way out or through it. And that's probably how I connected with these angels in my life, because they could see I really wanted to be, or I needed to be somewhere else. I think there's that opportunity for everyone. And that's why I created this idea of be your own ultimate resolve solution, and why I have this goal of creating this helpline, because I think there is an opportunity here for those of us who really help others and coach others and, want to mentor others to grow this awareness into the societies that, we surround ourselves in, and hopefully branch into other societies as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think faith is a really powerful thing. And in fact, it's one of the 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich in the book, which created More Millionaires Than Any Other book out there. It's a foundational principle of having faith. And all the different religions, the way I look at it is everyone has their own faith and their own stories around connecting with source or connecting with God. I do believe personally, I was brought up Christian. However, I also see in religion, there have been more wars than anything else through religion and through people being right about their faith. Whereas really, if we could just practice a bit more kindness in the world, kindness to self, kindness to others, despite whatever your beliefs are. I mean, whatever works for you, works for you. Whatever you believe that's going to, help you be intentional and help you be focused and help you get through life in the most powerful way possible for you. I think fantastic. Go for it. As long as there's kindness to others. And, this is where we see some very interesting things that happen in the form of faith. Like, we see suicide bombers. I was watching something about World War II, about the Japanese and the kamikaze bombers with in the Japanese culture, that they believe that, to sacrifice their life for their God or for for the higher powers that was a great way to go because of that faith, and etc. And hey, I mean, people suicide all the time and in different ways and for different reasons. And, there's others that really want to make the most of life. And I do believe that, just by being born, we are 1 in a billion just by being born. If we were beaten 1 billion swimmers to get to the finish line, there's a reason we're here on the planet. And, it's a very sad state of affairs, I believe, when people don't have faith in anything and they don't have faith in themselves. Coming back to this, self-love, self-worth, I think is just so important. In fact, we have the self-worth coach has joined us on Instagram. We have John Phillips there. Good to see you guys. We've got Mike Woodcock here on LinkedIn saying, my challenge is to respond rather than react to things. So what tips could you give people around that? Thank you for that, Mike. I appreciate that honesty there. What tips would you give to people who are challenged, like Mike is here, to respond rather than react?
Well, this I hope will help, because I even most recently have been learning new ways to respond rather than react. I have an ex-partner and I have to share care with children. And some people might resonate and understand how we can really feel challenged in responding versus reacting. I love that I'm learning so much out of this experience. First of all, I take breath work now more seriously. So breathing, we take it for granted. You have to breathe to live. But when we take a more conscious look at how we breathe and using our diaphragm, bringing in air deep into the lung, it helps calm and trigger that parasympathetic nervous system, which allows our mind to comprehend better and really take that brief moment, even if it's, instantaneously brief, to understand how to respond instead of react. Yeah. So I think a really good example is you're driving on the road and somebody's honking or cutting you off, doing something on the road that will trigger your road rage a bit, and you automatically might react and call them a jerk or worse. Certainly, if you take a deep breath, you might still call that person a jerk, but you might actually notice there was something you were doing that created that response in them, right? And that infinitesimal moment of pause that you've given yourself can shift and change everything, right? If you think of butterfly effects. So when I'm not taking that brief moment of breath and I'm going right into my reaction, well, my driving's a bit more aggressive, or, I'm just probably not being as mindful as I need to be because I'm still in the emotional state of the reaction. Breathing it takes that away. It really helps. So getting everyone right now, if you wouldn't mind, to take a nice deep breath through your nose. Just through the nose, right there. It didn't take much, did it? Some of us have stuffy noses. I am one who has a lot of sinus issues, so sometimes I can't do that. Doesn't matter. Take a deep breath with your mouth open. And notice the calming effect it has right away. So breath work, I think, is a massive tool that we could all work on using more often, just to give us that little gap to allow us to respond instead of react.
What's great about that is, so when we're talking about like the fight or flight response, and we're talking about, and then you bring in the other ones like anxiety, fear, and different things like that. What is funny about those things, and I've said this many times before on our show, is when you enter in a state of anxiety and fear, you literally enter into a state where your logic and critical centers of your brain have been blocked. Literally, in the most literal sense. I mean, I know that's very redundant the way I'm saying it, but I really want people to wrap their heads around that, because I think in most cases when I say something like that, it kind of goes over most people's heads. They're like, "Oh yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know that." But do you really understand that your logical centers and critical thinking centers inside your head get blocked when you're in a state of fear or an anxiety? And so much so, here, I'll give an example. Summer of 2020, we all know what happened. I call it the scamdemic. All right. But a perfect example of that happening is people's reaction. Instead of asking questions and instead of thinking logically and go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense and that doesn't make sense and this doesn't make sense either. How in the world is that actually going to protect me? What did people do? React. That is the perfect example of what it's like when you are in that reaction stage and you are in that state of fear and anxiety. And guess what? I'll drop another hint here. Mainstream media and news, they played right into that. They used every single bit of that fear and anxiety to control. So just something to think about. But I just wanted to speak into that for a moment, Hollie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
That is so correct. And, it's interesting because I was already, I would say, awake at that point when COVID was launched en masse, blasted through the media as the next worst thing that's ever going to hit anyone, like this whole fear campaign that happened. And immediately in my gut, I knew there was something off about it, right? I was like, oh, here we go again, right? Here we go. Now, having worked in the media for over 20 years, I know that whenever something is blasted through the media, that there's something else going on, like 9/11, right? As when a friend said to me years ago, 9/11 was an inside job, don't you? And actually, I didn't know at the time. I was like, what do you mean? And he just said, watch this video. And I started to get informed. I started to educate myself. I started to look at things that weren't shown in the mainstream media. And I started to put two and two together and realize that so much didn't make sense about what we were fed through the mainstream media. And then you got to ask the question, well, who's profiting from whatever's going on, right? What we saw through COVID, we saw the biggest transfer of wealth from the poor to the wealthy through the people that are behind the jab, right? We saw this roll out. What happened after 9/11? The war on terror happened. And what was behind the war on terror? There was a lot of money going on, right? There was a lot of sneaky business going on in politics. You wonder why people have trust issues. Right? We've seen it again and again. However, for those that are aware and awake and that question, then they have a whole different reality of what's going on. Then you can actually get informed and you can say, we do not consent. Like I do not consent. I'm exempt from mask wearing, for example. When I knew that I could be exempt from information that I got, and I knew that I didn't have to wear that because I was getting depressed. I was wearing the mask initially, and then I just felt depressed. I felt shut down. I felt awful. And when I found out that I could be exempt, plus the fact that the masks don't work, as we know. Ken and I've covered this on many shows where it just doesn't work anyway. It doesn't protect you from anything. In fact, if anything, you're breathing in your own bad air, and it's actually very bad for you. So anyway, we won't go down that right now. But, critical thinking, questioning things, and the mainstream media will dumb people down. It continually dumbs people down, has them living in fear. We're seeing it right now with the fire ant, the whole fire ant, the toxic fire ant program that the government's rolling out, $1.2 billion, trying to make people scared of fire ants. And what are they doing? They're poisoning the ecosystem. They're poisoning other animals. They're poisoning people because they're spraying this crap from helicopters into the water supplies, into people's water tanks. They're killing organic farming. And again, you've got to question, okay, what's behind all this? Who's making money from these poisons?
what is behind all this, right? And of course, we know the genetically modified food is being rolled out. We know it's about the smart cities controlling the population, controlling the food supplies, controlling the water supplies, right? We know what's going on. Those that are awake and aware are questioning what's going on. And by getting informed, like we've got this amazing event coming up on Sunday, Stop Toxic Fire Ant program. We're showing an amazing 1-hour documentary with Lynn Sutherland. We have a speaker panel. We are educating people so they can make informed choices, so that when they put the poison on their land, because the government is sending people poison in the mail now, and they're saying put it on your land even when there's no ants there, right? When you put that on your land and your dog dies, you are responsible. Talking about responsibility, you now become responsible because you've put the poison on your land, even though you've been coerced and you've been brainwashed by government. When you put the poison on your land, if you are not informed and your animals die, don't blame anybody else but yourself. Okay.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing with these employers that, employers that force their employees to get the jab. It's the same thing. The employers are responsible for those lives. And the other thing that I wanted to mention here too is, it's funny, once you start thinking clearly and once you start thinking logically and you start asking the right questions and you start thinking properly and you've calmed yourself, you've gotten out of that state of fear, literally you begin to get in a state where you can now break the hypnotic spell that puts on you. Because I think that's also a part of it. When you're in a state of fear and you're in a state of anxiety, you are literally in a hypnotic state, a programming state. And I think that's also something huge to mention here too. When
I agree.
Go ahead, Hollie. Expound.
Yeah, I think people don't quite understand hypnosis, obviously through what we've learned over the years in media. Exactly. But we get in a hypnotic state with our driving, we get in a hypnotic state watching a movie, we get in a hypnotic state listening to music. There's lots of hypnotic states we get into. In fact, what we're doing right now could be putting some people in a hypnotic state. And what they listen to on the radio and in the news media definitely puts them in a hypnotic state. And so when we want to talk about responsibility and creating a discipline of being self-responsible, we want to try and get ourselves in a position of being aware when we want to be in that hypnotic state and when we don't. So it's much easier to control which hypnotic state you want for yourself if you stay rather alert in the first place and being aware of that. So, I wanted to comment on that 2020 thing because that was a really good example for how much responsibility impacts my world, my life. In that time frame, nothing about that resonated for me. I did not have a reaction in that case. My reaction was really, do they think I'm that stupid? That's kind of the reaction I had. So for me, it was, all right, I'm going to find the exemption to the mask because I don't believe in that. We use masks if we don't want to get our spit on somebody else. We want to use a mask if we want to protect somebody from what we're putting out there, sure, like we do in surgical rooms, right? But to think that we have to constantly wear masks to protect ourselves from somebody else is a twisted perspective. So it didn't resonate. And you kind of mentioned the employers being the responsible parties for the employees. I actually don't align with that because all of us have a choice in what we do. And one thing I've said for years, and especially at that time, was the people who have the most power to do something haven't recognized and felt empowered to take the steps they need to do it. So nurses in hospitals, so many nurses finally got challenged in a way that helped them understand something's not right in their environment. And even still, they did not stand up and fight against the forces that are twisting their industry. Now, if you think about it, if you go to one hospital and you get all the nurses who know that things are not being done right for people, to walk out of that hospital, there will still be a skeleton crew of nurses who don't agree that stay to look after everybody. So nobody's going to be at harm. If they did that, the doctors who also agree would follow, and there would still be a skeleton crew of doctors there, so nobody would be at harm. And yet nobody did it. And so for me, I look at it like, if you were really pushed to the edge and you quit your job and you decided not to be a nurse or not to be a doctor, you did the right thing. You took responsibility for showing that A, you can't be manipulated and you will not be forced to go against what you know is right for you. But also B, you're taking a stand to say there's something not right here in the circumstance, and I'm not going to be bullied anymore. And I'm going to say it's time to stop. I really hoped that we could get some of these messages out back then, but yes, the fear is great. And the idea of McCarthyism, which is kind of an American concept, really started to slip back in. So the concept of ratting out your neighbor, back then it was ratting out your neighbor for being a communist. Now it's ratting out your neighbor for not getting the jab or going someplace they weren't supposed to go, right? It definitely settled some fear in there. And I had to work through that and go, you know what, I won't fear that. And I know people who also did not fear that and said, I'm not going to put my foot in the fire, but I'm also not going to stand over here with these people and comply and be subjugated.
Yep. And you know what, thinking back on it, like, I understand why you didn't resonate with the employer thing. I can actually see your point, because there was responsibility on both levels, so it wasn't just the employer. So I see your point there, and you made a really good point. So I just wanted to make sure I let you know that you made a good point.
Yeah.
But it's crazy, and I will tell this story. I used to play so many games with people during that time. I had a literal ridiculous looking shirt sleeve cutoff that I would wear in places that made that I really had, whatever. It was what it was. It looked ridiculous and it looked pointless. And I actually played with that. I actually rolled with it because the entire bottom section was open, and half the time I would roll it up a little bit to where you could actually see my mouth, but technically I'm wearing a mask. It would piss so many people off, and I would actually get entertained by it. I would play games with some of these people working and different things like that. They would tell me to put it back on or to pull it down. I pull it down for the second, and then when they weren't looking, I'd pull it back up. I would play games with people during that time, just because it was partly because, well, number one, my awakening happened. I had a friend that actually ended up red pilling me. Sent me a 3-hour documentary on the fall of Cabal. And let's just say after that, I started going on every rabbit trail possible and learned a lot of pieces that I was missing. I've always had an innate sense inside of me, a gut feeling that the government could not be trusted. You're being watched, all that. But I was missing all the major pieces. I had a lot of missing pieces. And then, I came away from that documentary and many more after that. And now I got the pieces. And once I woke up and I realized the truth around everything geopolitically, everything, even the health and food industry, which is a whole nother thing. That's when I felt free enough to start playing games with people, because I'm like, there is nothing going on. There is no virus. There is no anything. It's all, the C-19 thing, all that really is a really bad cold and flu. I mean, honestly, people, when you really think about it, for, let's see, 2020, 2021, and a little bit of 2022, where did the cold and flu season go? Where did the cold and flu cases go? We didn't hear about it, did we? But where did they go? Did it just disappear? Right? So, I mean, anyhow.
Well, I took the responsibility of supplementing my diet with extra vitamin C and glutathione and, making sure my magnesium zinc levels were matching where they needed to be, and looking at what I eat and the things I expose myself to. So I've been taking responsibility for that for many years, knowing when I let myself slip down in the toxic realm and how to detox and get myself out of it. This particular season, I found it really paid off. So while people would get sick around me, I wasn't getting sick. The time that I had to test myself, to ensure that I was not COVID marked and came out positive, I had absolutely no symptoms. So look, I try not to rattle everybody by saying their model of the world is wrong. I just say, look, in my model of the world, none of this made any sense to me. And I did all the right things and people didn't get sick because of me. And I don't have any ramifications from having gone about the world around all these people either, other than just continue living my best life.
Well, the other thing I wanted to say,
oh yeah,
Hollie,
go ahead.
is so you mentioned that you got tested a couple times. I'm here to tell you that because of the research I've done, those tests are rigged too. Most of the time, they're going to show positives when they're not.
I actually know somebody who knows all about those tests, so I've known all about them, just people don't want to believe me. So one of my clients very clearly said what those tests were, what they were made from, what they could actually see and learn from, and thus I already knew. But I couldn't change the mind of others about it. So, I'm trying to follow the protocols I have to do for the rest of society, whether or not I agree with it. And that's why, I said I try to respect everybody else's model of the world, but also understanding there's a lot of information people are not ready for, so they won't even know, even if you put it right in front of their face. Aldwyn, you were talking about media for years, and something I mentioned is my grandfather was in the Korean War. He was a sergeant at the front lines, and when he came back, my mother and her sister had a really hard life. By the time I came around, he was a little softer, but it didn't change the fact that he wanted me to learn things. And so he taught me how to see liars in the media. He showed me back in the 80s, as the newscasters were talking about things, the facial twitches, the body language, when they don't show real live images, all sorts of things. He taught me back then to spot when it's being altered, when that is biased information. And so if anyone remembers back in the 80s, that was a big issue about truth in media. And they started doing more live broadcasts because people wanted and demanded more truth in media. And that live broadcast became such a thing that now today we can see how that's been altered to fit the narratives people want us to hear, right? And so I've also seen how that shifted and changed, and why I do my research, and I constantly go down the rabbit hole on something that I feel is very important to find the truth of it. And pretty much everybody knows any good lie always has an element of truth. So what we see in the world is people utilizing that to their advantage. And yes, I've done the neuro-linguistic programming, you've done the landmark. We also know people can use those resources in a negative way to manipulate people. That makes me ill, because there are so many of us that are using those tools in a positive way to really help and empower people. And if we can bring out the manipulators and show them for who they are by standing in our own truth, by working in an empowered way, helping others, I truly believe we have a chance to diminish that, to change our world.
Yeah, and that's what that's exactly, sorry, Aldwyn, that's exactly what we stand for. That's what the Total Truth Show stands for. That's why we are here, because we stand in that. We want to empower people to see that truth. I would actually sometime down the line be interested in having a conversation with you, Hollie, on the stuff that you've been taught about how to see through those media people. I'm actually fascinated about that. So that'd be cool. Aldwyn, you had something you were going to pop in and I just totally cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm fascinated about that too. I would love to know, because I've done some NLP training too, and they talk about different ways your eyes go. You can tell people are lying. And I actually did a big expose about lies in September last year with the Global Good News Challenge. Every single day for 9 days, I talked about different types of lies, lies by omission, white lies, etc. And I don't know anyone who hasn't lied, lied by omission, or some kind of lie where they've justified their lies and, for whatever reason, didn't want to upset someone or whatever, didn't want to change a situation or circumstance. So I think this is a very, very interesting thing. And we are at a time now when we don't know who to trust, because there's been so many dodgy people in government and in media and authority figures that we have been brought up to respect and to trust. We have now realized we cannot trust them, hence why the Total Truth Show, this is where Ken and I started this at the beginning of this pandemic, because we were sick of all the lies. And, I take 100% responsibility. And actually, I did a post on Facebook about a time that I lied, and then I lied about the lie to cover up that lie. And I justified the lie, right? We've all done it at different times. And I know how I feel whenever I lie, even if it's a tiny little lie about something, versus telling the whole truth and nothing but the truth, no matter what people are going to think when I tell the whole truth, because there will be people that are not going to like it. However, I do believe that the more you do tell the truth and be totally in integrity with yourself, it's a more empowered way of living life and actually toughening yourself to the criticism that might come from that. Hence why we see so many people that are married and that are screwing around on their partners, and this could happen for years. However, eventually, I do believe the truth always comes out in the end. And while someone else may not know that you're lying, you're lying, right? You've cheated, you've stolen, or whatever you've done, right? Look at the 10 commandments. There's a lot of wisdom in those 10 commandments. And it's an interesting thing. So what are some of the ways that you can tell people are being dodgy, Hollie?
There's a way they shift in their seat. Yeah, I like, we may shift because I was crossing my legs and I uncrossed my legs. So there is that. But there's just something about, I think, the way that the shoulders get raised, a sternness, a seriousness, and a twitch of an eyebrow, or just, we'll have a few different things. And overall, I think we don't notice any of it if we have no intuitive connection. So when you get an intuitive connection and you intuitively feel, I know this is such a girly concept of feeling, but men do it as well. You get a vibe, you don't like this person, or there's something about this person that doesn't sit right. And so you're putting all these things together. We do need to look at, flushes. When the face flushes a little bit, the coloration just changes. And these are things we're not really conscious of unless we really point it out to someone to look at how that shifted. The way newscasters might turn and redirect to somebody else. I know I was in Cairns 2 years ago, maybe, and we just happened to turn the TV on while I was waiting, for Alex to get ready. And they put an advert on, a short advert with the newscasters about turning in your guns, which here in Australia, they made everybody hand in their guns to try and remove guns from society as much as possible. But that was done in the past. It hadn't really been an issue. And all of a sudden, they brought this back up. Hand in your guns. And the newscaster was a male, and you could see he was very uncomfortable. His whole body language looked really uncomfortable. The way he spoke was really measured. Something about the tonal quality of it indicated that he was saying something he didn't believe in. I thought that was actually hilarious at the time. I was saying, Alex, you gotta come see this. Because you could really see that even that guy didn't understand why he had to make this message.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So interesting, because I've seen this a lot too with journalists. I would say it's very, very challenging to be 100% objective, because your personal thoughts and viewpoints and beliefs will have to have some kind of impact on the story in some way, in how you shape the story.
And getting conscious to that is half the thing. And I think, this is a big challenge for a lot of people. A lot of people are out there, they are like sleepwalking. It's a lot of people that are, not happy with their lives. They're Groundhog Day, doing the same old thing. There's no passion, no excitement, no lust for life. And this is why we saw 4 times the suicide rates through the whole pandemic, because there was so much mental health problem. In fact, they say 43% of people at some point in their life will have some kind of mental health issue, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever it is. And I think this is increasing now with the social anxiety that's been happening with social media in the last 20 years. Now we have 5 billion active social media users out of the 8 billion people on the planet. So a lot more people now are sort of glued to their phones. And in being glued to their phones, they now have this hunchback situation that's starting, which is a very depressed state that people are in. And then if you add the mask to that, actually I saw a lot of this in Singapore recently. I just got back from 2 weeks in Singapore, and the number of people who I saw on their phones on public transport and with masks on, it actually was quite an interesting study of the way the world seems to be going. And now with AI, and now you'd be watching videos online, you think, well, is that actually really the person? Is that actually a real photo we're looking at here? Now we just don't know what is the truth, what is the truth anymore.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm having that same challenge as well. Like, what's real? What's not real? Who is this actually real? Now, I'm pretty good at seeing most of that nowadays. It's like if I see a really awkward, just way far out there, kind of like Wi-Fi-ish kind of video that looks like it could be true, all I have to do is just take a moment and go, wait a minute. That's so AI. And then I flip off. I'm just like, whatever. I'm like, I have no interest in even like indulging myself in that, entertainment. But it is true. And this is why I like things like this, because you can tell this is real. And you can tell that as we're talking and as we're sharing things, you can tell when, we're passionate about something. You can tell when, we really know and we really believe what we're saying and all of that. This is real. And that's what I like about this. I never have, I play around with ChatGPT a little bit because I think in some cases ChatGPT can be very useful in helping you produce content and different things like that. It has for me. I've got a couple deep threads that I'm working on with ChatGPT where I've totally programmed the thread and it's actually spitting out some legit stuff. And some things I'm just like, that's a really good angle. I never thought about taking that. That's good. And I would say that. So, things like that, I think is okay. But playing around with some of these AI chats that create videos with you on them, I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. If I'm going to make a video, if I'm going to do anything AI related to videos, it's basically going to be a 15-minute video that I've already created and I'm going to upload it and it's going to make reels out of it for me. Yeah. That's about the extent I'm going to go. But I just don't, I think there's a line that needs to be drawn in the sand with some of this AI stuff. Because
I think that's a great conversation for another show because that's a big topic.
It is. Sorry. I didn't want to get too far off on that, but it just kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the concept of self-responsibility around AI is a big conversation. I know Elon Musk is talking about it a lot because he says we can continue to use this and develop it for a good cause and for good purpose. But I'm not hearing the conversation around how we're protecting it from being twisted and used for poor purpose, negative purpose, right? For dangerous, purpose. And that's a conversation that I'd like to be hearing more of from people who understand it better, who use it, develop it, etc. Truth is all relative to our perspective. Right. We all have a different perspective. I have an ebook coming out about glasses. Yeah. A few of us are wearing glasses, but all of us look through some lens. And the lens that we all look through is different. Yeah. What we see is different. What we perceive is different. How the information gets interpreted is different. And it's great if we can resonate and we can find similarity or likeness or, sameness. But with the number of people that we have in the world, it's getting harder to link same perspectives in larger groups. And AI could help with that, or it could really destroy it. It really could shift the lens that we see the world with in a way that could be detrimental. And I think if we all take responsibility in how we use it, we all take responsibility in asking questions, what is this being used for? And take responsibility for standing up, complaining, flagging, if somebody's using something irresponsibly, if somebody's using your image, don't say, oh, well, do something about it, Be the red poppy, be the tall poppy, yeah, because it's for your own safety and the safety of your friends and family and your community. And so we need to be able to take the responsibility of understanding that we are integral in the development of the new world.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that totally. If you're seeing an issue out there that you're not happy about, something's happening that irks you in some way, maybe it moves you, maybe you get sad or you get angry or you get triggered in some way. Your body, your emotions are telling you something, right? If there's some kind of trigger happening, I believe it's a prompting to do something about it. And if you don't do something about it, if you don't speak up or step up about something, I do believe you're being part of the problem. And don't whinge about things if you're not doing something about it. And there's something we can all do about something. Or you can share something from social media that's empowered you, or you can sign a petition against something. So right now with the fire ants, there's all these petitions going where people are signing petitions to stop the toxic fire ant program. We don't want this poison on our land. This is going to kill our environment for future generations. It's killing the bees. Without the bees, we don't have food. Right? This is a serious, serious issue. And people think, oh, it's just a few fire ants. No, well, actually, the ant poison they're sending out is killing all ants. And one of the big things that can help fight the fire ants is actually other ants. And there's 200 species or so of native Australian ants that are also being killed. And a lot of people are not aware. You can just pour hot water on a fire ant nest and kill the ants that way. You don't have to be putting poison everywhere, right? So it's getting informed, getting educated, making empowered choices for yourself. This is how you take responsibility powerfully. And you can do it in a kind, direct way without being nasty to anyone. If someone wants to put the fire ant or the ant poison all over their yard, well, that's your choice, right? And as I say, we've had people that they've seen birds like rosellas and cockatoos come and eat the poison off their yard that's been put on there, and they're next day dead all over their yard. The birds are all dead. Now, is that coincidence? Within 24 hours, the birds were alive, they eat the poison, then they're dead. So, you've really, you got to question things.
You do. And Aldwyn, I love that you're on this topic because it's such a hot topic for Australia right now. I don't know what is happening in the US because we don't have the same fire ants over there. But the chemicals that are being used for farming and for crops and controlling pests have been a problem in the US for a long time, which has impacted the rest of the world. And I've been onto that for some time and understanding the detriment of using particular pesticides in the yard. And so many people have been using toxic things even after they know they should stop. The concept of change in people's mind happens so slowly. And that's the scary thing, because now we understand it's creating genetic mutations. So where glyphosate, as Dr. Bush announced in studies, glyphosate in rats didn't really cause any harm in that first generation, but the offspring was showing problems with not fertility at that point, but it may be fertility. But the next generation even from that was sterile. So the idea of fertility is being affected, and the next generation of stillbirths and failures with their fertility were affected. And the idea of longevity in safety studies has been a big problem for some time. And I know Robert Kennedy has been talking a lot about vaccine safety because longevity studies haven't been done. And editor of the Lancet, who left because of the lack of integrity, then got demonized after she left so that people wouldn't believe her. which I found out in 2015, has created this foundation for people to continually push studies through that haven't been done properly. And yeah, I'm okay to talk about it because it's had a massive impact in my life. You know, I've been demonized myself in 2015 and in the media. So I understand that people don't like hearing that their science has been corrupted. People want to believe the science is settled, and I like to put that out there. That is not the definition of science, ever. Science is constantly questioning. You get a result, now question it. What questions do you ask? You know, all of the questions. Okay, we got this great result. Is it consistent? Can we repeat it? We can repeat it. What's going to happen after, you know, this has been going for so long? What happens then? What happens then? The constant questioning is science. There is no such thing as settled science.
I have to speak into this.
Yeah, people who've understood about lead poisoning know this because we learned asbestos poisoning, lead poisoning from the 1800s. We have documented fact that that stuff affected us, not instantaneously, but over time. And if we are not doing studies for new things that come out, we don't really know what it's going to do to us as a society, as humanity. And people are saying, but hey, it's going to help the transition and the, you know, humanity's evolution. And I said, no, that's not humanity's evolution. That's humanity's destruction. The evolution is the questions and is the caution and care that we take when we take responsibility for what resonates for us. So that's where I say, if you resonate with that vaccine harmoniously, vibrationally, maybe that's not going to be so toxic for you. But perhaps you plan on having kids, and maybe there's a little doubt in there, and you're using a vaccine because you're fearful. That doesn't tell me that you resonate with the medication that's in it or what they're doing. And so you don't truly resonate with what it can do for you. You're just assuming it's going to do something for you, and you're not really looking at what it can do to you and what it might, you know, what might result from it. And you know, this is why I do talk a lot about that self-responsibility, because you need to ask those questions, because it's you. It's going to impact you, and it's going to impact your children, and it's going to impact the people around you. So yeah, I guess that's the foundation.
I definitely gotta dive into this, because I mean, you definitely talking about the pesticides and stuff like that, especially in the U.S. So some interesting things that I'm going to mention here, and then I do know we have to start wrapping up, but I must speak into this. So here's the thing. You've got these globalists, these elite globalists that are constantly telling us, oh, environment this, global warming, and the ocean's going to raise, and all the lovely messaging. Let me help you with some things. So through an actual PDF document booklet that I created for the purpose of my mini educational boot camp, which I will talk about that towards the end here. But and this PDF talks about the fake meat industry, Impossible Foods and Impossible Burgers. And doing research for that, I discovered a couple articles talking about how they are the very ones that are hurting our planet. Because the pesticides that they're using on the GMO products and bioengineered products and the GMO feed that they're feeding cows and different things like that, the pesticides that they're spraying on these crops, and the same crops that make up those so-called Beyond Burgers and stuff like that, the same crops that make up those burgers, 40% of the insect population is in danger of being extinct. 40% right now. Because of what they are doing. This is not us. This is them. And the same ones that would also tell us that the ocean is rising. They've been telling us that for like how many years? 20, 30, 40? I don't know. I lost track. But are also the same ones that are buying houses on the beach. Luxurious mansions on the beach. Does that make any sense? Also, let me point out this too. You know, I mean, okay, so before I go off on that trail, let me zero back in on the pesticides. So, the pesticides, you guys, do you realize how many GMO crops, how many bioengineered crops that they have developing out there? Do you realize some of these major so-called natural storms that are coming, which I don't believe that they're natural, are decimating lands? What do you think they're going to do? We saw what they did in Hawaii. They took people's lands away from them after the decimation. What do you think they're going to be doing with those lands? More GMO stuff, more. This is what they're doing. Their GMO crops and the pesticides that they're spraying on these crops is causing so much damage. It's not the cows. It's not us. It's not the what do you call it? The carbon dioxide, whatever mixture in the air. It's not that. It's them. It's everything that they're doing in the pesticides. You guys,
I love that you share that. Yeah, I love that you share that, because it is all connected. And this is what I love about what I do, because I explained this to people that I work on with my hands, that the neck pain is connected to the lower back, or the inactive glutes that you might have, right? And how the body is all connected. Everything is a mirror. Our humanity mirrors the biology of our plant system, right? It mirrors the biology of the planet. And when we start looking at how that mirrors, it makes it a whole lot easier for us to take responsibility with what we're doing in our environment. And I love that we've got awareness, and it's good that we share the awareness. But I want to turn it around from being the negative propulsion that we've seen so much of over the past few years. Like you said, we're elevating our spirit, we're moving into 5D, and a lot of people won't understand what that is. But the concept of now, instead of inciting fear in people about all the things that are going wrong, we actually inspire people with the ways we can correct and do things right, or move in the right direction. So, I have friends who are hardcore vegan, and there's no budging them. But I've said to them, you know what? You help because you're pushing for change, even though we're never going to go the way you want us to go. You are trying to push for change in the way that we use and grow animals, and how we eat meat, and what we do with the meat eating world, so that we can be more integral with it. Because there are people who are never going to stop eating meat. No amount of force in the vegan world is going to shift the people that eat meat and eat animal products. However, the force of what they do is going to try and drive change into that sector. And I think that's true with a lot of our processes. And that's, obviously something we could go into depth more about. But I appreciate very much that we have to give information, we have to share information, so people understand why we want to make certain changes and why we do certain things that we do. But I feel like we have to get onto the bandwagon of positivity now, and rather than continually in the fear cycle of what's going wrong, so that we can actually create a more positive shift in the world. So yeah, that's what I love about the Global Consciousness Group, is getting that positive shift, because there's so much negative stuff in the world that we need to know about, but we want to hear about it in a way that doesn't bring us down. We want to hear about it in a way that gives us hope.
Yeah, it's a challenging one, that, because when you hear this information, initially there is anger and there's frustration and sadness that comes up. Like Kelly is saying here, she says that poison is going to leak into the water, into the soil, and then it's going to end up in the food source. Now would be health problems and cancer. So sad, makes me sick, right? And that's the thing, it is making people sick, literally. And so then the challenge is, how can you respond to the situation once you now know this information and you feel those moments of feeling sad and angry? And it's important to let those emotions out too, I believe, not suppress that. But then how to then rise above it in an empowered way and go, okay, I now have this information. What can we now do about it? Now that I know There's no unknowing. Once you know, there's no unknowing, right? So what can you do in an empowered way, like the yin yang of life? How can you turn that negative into a positive? And Aaron Harmer here is saying the same. He says he also feels sick, and he relates, right, to what Kelly's saying. And I get it, right? And this is the thing. Some of this stuff can be really hard to believe. Like, how the hell does this even happen? How does $1.2 billion of government money go into poisoning Australia, and taxpayers are paying for this? Like, what the hell? And $10 million is going into advertising to brainwash people as well. I mean, it is the pandemic all over again. Are people really going to buy this? Yes, a lot of people are going to buy it, right? And there's a lot more people now are questioning, because they've seen the schmozzle that's happened the last 4 years. They've seen it's almost like we're in our own little movie world here. It's almost like the brainwashing through Hollywood. Watch Out of Shadows. That'll give you a great perspective on what's going on in the world, because we're seeing the wastelands in Hollywood right now, and this is the way things are going. If you don't step up, speak up, turn these negatives into positive, turn the darkness into light, and help raise awareness about these things, then nothing is going to shift if we don't step up and speak up in an empowered way right now. And this is where doing the inner work, I think, is so important, Holly, and Ken as well. With the inner work, with doing the work, the personal development work, with having that insight and having that faith, that's when you can really move forward in a much more empowered state than being reactive, I believe.
I think her power died.
Yeah, I think she's just frozen. Just frozen there.
Because I think she was trying to plug in a power earlier, and I don't think it worked. But anyhow, I totally resonate with everything you just said, Aldwyn.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. Thank you. And we do need to wrap. So while we're waiting for Holly to hopefully come back and join us, how can people connect with you, Ken? Let's do your wrap.
All right. Well, you can connect with me through my a special page that I designed on my website, and I designed it because I wanted it to be simple. So on that page, there's 4 different links. There's a link to join my bootcamp, which I'm going to get to in just a minute. There's a link to book a discovery call with me. There's a link to connect with me on Facebook, and there's a link to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I've got great YouTube stuff coming out there, and I'm looking to build my channel. Go subscribe, definitely. But more importantly, okay, so that link is www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. All right. Pretty much spelled all exactly the way it sounds. Now, in regards to that boot camp, so I've lost 62.5 pounds, people. And I've been able to keep it off for 6+ years now, all without a diet and having it be sustainable. I literally don't have to think about it. And so I am giving away my 3 secrets to being able to lose that last 20 pounds, to kick those sugar addictions, to finally break free from the hunger issues, and to finally be able to keep the weight off once you've lost it for good. In this mini bootcamp educational series, you will be equipped with an empowered mindset. You're going to be equipped to spot the industry lies and to see right past them and avoid the pitfalls. You will also be equipped to see past the marketing deceptions that this industry uses. They put it all over their packaging, making you think that what you're buying is healthy, and it looks healthy, and it seems like a great option. In reality, it's not. It's their marketing deceptions. I help you see right past that. And this is all in 3 in-depth one-on-one sessions with me. And it comes with booklets, and you get the recordings all with that. All of this right now is going for $75. Here's the catch. By the end of this year, my coach is making me raise the bootcamp price. So what I would encourage everybody to do that's listening to this, if you want to break free from sugar addictions, the hunger issues, lose that last 20 pounds, all of that, dive into my bootcamp. It's only $75. You got nothing to lose, guys, but that extra weight, and you've got everything to gain in the right way. So anyhow, that is me. So www.masteryweightloss.com/connect. And you will find the link to that at the very, very top of that list. So glad to see you back, Holly. What happened?
Hi, welcome. Yes, thank you. my whole camera situation died and I had to restart. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes, all good.
Fabulous. So yeah, sorry I missed the beginning, but Ken, that sounds like a great offer, what you're doing. And is that what I'm doing now? Am I sharing my offerings and sharing what I
Yes.
do?
How people can work with you would be great to know. And we'll come back to Ken's quote. We haven't heard Ken's quote today. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So, yes, how can people connect with you, Hollie?
So what I've created with Be Your Own Ultimate Resolve Solution is still in its kind of infancy of sorts. I'm working with Alex in the Mind Paradigm, and what we're doing is we're looking to mentor up to 12 people. I'm looking for 5 people to mentor in our program to help build on their packages. So imagine, Ken, if you have a resource or a tool that's going to help you with what you do to be better and help your business grow, we have a tool to help with that. And we mentor you in understanding how to use that tool to your advantage, helping you with your business and growth in your coaching programs. Now, the whole purpose behind that is greater because it's about funding the Be Yours helpline. It's about building in that social enterprise. So when you join in the Mind Paradigm, you utilize the resource that we have. All of that we are taking in is being funneled into Be Yours to build the helpline and be able to get coaches on board to be on hand when people need assistance. And so that greater vision is what's in development. And I'm really looking right now to mentor some coaches who enjoy the concept and look at wanting to grow and build with us. Also in creating coaches. So there may be people who go, wow, I've lived and I want to use my life experience to help others. They actually have the opportunity to learn and become NLP certified, working with the tool as they're learning it. So they actually can start helping people as quickly as when they start getting mentored with us. So yes, we'll be looking at the mindparadigm.com, maybe it's .com.au, and with Facebook, Be Yours. Facebook Be Yours is the page that I'm growing and building, so it's quite new, as you may find. I would love to get more people following me there. And with regard to the Be Yours helpline, I'm working on getting grants and building the coaching network of people who want to be able to provide that service. And I'm excited to share that vision with you and how that works if you're interested. So you can follow me on Facebook, Hollie Johnson on Facebook. It might be Hollie628 actually in the Facebook profile. And you can follow me on Be Yours. I would just love for people to get in touch with me if they want to learn more about what I'm sharing. I also have a book called Magic Words. Yeah. And it is related to the truth about responsibility, but it's really about the economy of responsibility and discipline. And that ebook will be available very soon. So if you're very interested in delving more into responsibility and discipline, you'll want to get your hands on that ebook. Please make sure you connect with me so you can get a copy.
Amazing. And for those who are on audio, that's facebook.com. Go to /BE Yours, YOURS FB for Facebook. So facebook.com /BE Yours FB. You'll find Hollie there, and she'll be tagged in these posts as well if you're on visuals on the video. And do you have a quote you'd like to share with us today, Hollie?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned things about truth earlier, and I went, that is part of my favorite quote. I have it at the tagline of my personal email even, because I really love sharing that if you well, as it's quoted specifically, always tell the truth. I react responsibly and appropriately when I know the truth. I may not like what I hear, but I will appreciate it. And I came to that quote because I kind of had a bit of a whip, or I probably still have a little bit of a whip sometimes with my words, and I can be blunt. So I can share a truth that people don't really like to hear, but it benefits them. Even if not in the moment, eventually it does. And that I learned that myself, some people telling me a truth I didn't like, but it was exactly what I needed to hear to lead me where I needed to be.
Yes, the truth will set you free, as they say. I love that. Thank you, Hollie. It's been fantastic having you as a guest. And you just showed beautifully how you responded to a curveball that happened, as in your phone died, and you came back on and we carry on. Stuff happens. You carry on, get on with the show. So well done on that. Great example of taking responsibility rather than reacting and going, oh, well, this is stuffed. I'm not going to come back on. I'm so embarrassed, blah, 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 right? That you could have gone that way. You didn't.
No.
So
I'm grateful to be here. And I was like, get me back on.
Right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, we've loved having you on today, Hollie. And Ken, what's your quote for us today?
It's not necessarily a quote, but it's over here on this wall, and I think it applies very nicely. You cannot hope for motivation in the day. You must be intentional about it. Start your day with intention. Don't hope for the day to go well. Intend for the day to go well. Set those intentions for it to go well.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great one. And for those who want to connect with me, just hop along to my Linktree /Aldwyn has got all my links there, my calendar link. We have the event on Sunday, Stop Toxic Fire Ant Program. It's at Currumbinara Cell, 4 p.m. It's a free event. We've got the 1-hour documentary, David Attenborough style, Lynn Sutherland animal documentary. It's going to be amazing. Actually, you can see the preview even in the link in Humanitics, which is where you can get your tickets, linked in my Linktree. So hop along there. You'll find all the details of the event, the amazing speaker panel that we have. The founder of Save the Bees is flying up from Melbourne. Simon Mulvaney is coming up to the Gold Coast. It's going to be an awesome event. And then we'll be staying back and drinking and eating, no doubt, afterwards as well, and connecting with community. So it's going to be a really empowering event on Sunday. Come along and join us. Also, if you want to donate a raffle prize for our raffles for the charity, then that would be amazing. Let us know. We'll then promote you, some free marketing for you. So just reach out to me if you'd like to donate a raffle prize. We have Channel 7 that are going to be covering it, 94.1, some other media coming on board. So big thanks to our media sponsors and supporters who also stand for truth and stand for empowering people to get educated with some alternate stories to what we may see in the mainstream media blasts, right? And we know with the censorship that has been happening through social media even, we know that there's definitely truth when there's censorship. And here I can see Kelly Franz is saying, what is the name of that movie? So I mentioned Out of Shadows. Out of Shadows came out in June 2020. It had 10 million views in a month when it came out, and then it got shut down on a whole lot of social media platforms. However, there is a link in Conscious Community Global, my Facebook group, which you will find in my Linktree as well. You'll find it in there, Conscious Community Global. Look up Out of Shadows. There's actually a link to the video on Vimeo, which has not been censored. It's on someone's private Vimeo, and you'll be able to hop in there and watch Out of Shadows, which is all about how we've been brainwashed by the mainstream media and by our education system for many, many years. And it's done by 2 Hollywood stunt guys. Very, very powerful documentary. It's a must-see, I believe, for everyone. And once you see that documentary, it will wake you up to so much, and it will empower you with that knowledge. If you can rise above the anger and the sadness and the disbelief, because it's absolutely hard to believe some of this stuff that you're going to find out. And it's not conspiracy. Even the term conspiracy theory was created by the CIA in the 1950s to knock anyone who spoke against the government. Now, isn't that interesting? Even just search the term conspiracy theorists, right? And you'll find a whole lot of stuff that will be an absolute eye-opener for you. The biggest conspiracy is what we've been seeing in the mainstream media and what we've been seeing with government. That's the biggest conspiracy. And of course, all the conspiracy theories are starting to come true, or we're starting to see evidence of the truth around those things. So, do your own research, of course. Don't take, what we're saying as gospel here. This is our opinion and our beliefs from what we know to be true. Do your own research for what you believe to be true. Connect on there. I also have a whole lot of free media resources on my website. All the links are in there. Check it out. Global Good News Challenge happens every month, sharing gratitude and good news, a way you can help to decrease depression and suicide rates as well by sharing more good news. So let's stay connected. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. I've had a few strikes and a few, warnings on my YouTube channel. However, there's still 1,300 videos up there and it's still going, and I have backup of everything. So even if my YouTube channel goes down, I will have backup. I've got a BitChute channel, Rumble, etc. You'll find me all over the place. So let's stay connected. Check out some of the other inspiring content there. Great interview with David Icke that I did back in 2016. You'll find that on there as well. A whole lot of other amazing content. So check it out there. Linktree/Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn. And my quote for today is a Dalai Lama quote about responsibility. I believe that to meet the challenge of our times, human beings will have to develop a greater sense of universal responsibility. Each of us must learn to work not just for his or her own self, family, or nation, but for the benefit of all mankind. Universal responsibility is the real key to human survival. Is that a beautiful quote? I love that one. And I just want to mention too, something very interesting popped up last night on Media Queen TV. I was interviewing Kathy Osborne, who's the Libertarian candidate for the state government election that is happening currently in Queensland. And she mentioned something to me that I actually didn't know about called PFAS. And PFAS is a firefighting foam that was used on Air Force bases that poisoned a lot of land and a lot of people. It contaminated properties, and there was a $132.7 million payout that happened by the government due to this. And this was, it was actually 7 defense sites around Australia where this poison was rolled out. And what she was saying is that what's going on with the fire ant program at the moment, this is all like PFAS all over again. And so I started to research this, and I'm actually going to pop a link in here for you to actually have a look to check out what happened with PFAS. And Erin Brockovich actually came out to fight the case as well. But, $132 million, that's really a drop in the ocean for the toxic effect that PFAS has had on the people. Like, kids were being born with 2 heads and things like that. Like, really serious mutations are happening with this poison, and you can never get rid of it, right? This is the thing. This toxins go out there. You can't, there's no way to biodegrade it or to, work out what to do with it, right? So very, very interesting. So definitely check that out. And Ken, you was doing something with your hands there. You want to say something?
Yeah, Hollie just needs to go. She was letting us know in the private chat. She's got a client.
Yes. Oh, we need to wrap. Yes. Okay, well, we'll wrap right now. Thank you so much, everyone.
That's what I was doing.
If you need to go, Hollie, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. We're going to wrap up very quickly. I'll just say a quick goodbye to everyone. We've got John Phillips there, John Chi, Perry, Robert Mull, Ponce Rules, Keen Buckley, Natalie King, Birdie Beatty, hello. Thank you so much for joining us live. For everyone also who has commented, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for the people who've joined us here on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Jeff Veal, Kelly France, Aaron Harmer, Mike Woodcock. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've enjoyed this, let us know, what did you enjoy about it in the chat. Share the love. Let's stay connected. Let's stay informed and empowered. Sending you much love today as we wrap up Total Truth Show, episode 83. Thank you so much, Hollie. Thank you, Ken. We'll see you again next time. Bye.